So this week is another one of the notes I'm not the number one fan of, and that's saffron. Now the problem with saffron in fragrances is generally it doesn't smell like actual saffron. Now real saffron doesn't have that strong a taste or smell, does it? It just adds a little bit of something about it. It certainly to me doesn't taste leathery or dense or this really thick stuff that tends to be what saffron fragrances are nowadays. It's not like that. So what's my kind of favourite saffron? And what does it remind me of? Like I say, sometimes in fragrances it can be leathery, can be medicinal, can have that weird bandagey smell about it. It can have this really particular to so-called Middle Eastern fragrances, this particular red, brown, thick, weird texture and smell about it, and that's where I really struggle. I do prefer the leathery one, but yeah, we'll crack up. So first up on the list is from Papillon Perfumeries. I realised I might have mentioned them recently, and this one is Anubis. Now Anubis is all these kind of, it's incense, it's resins like myrrh, there's some dark flowers running through. I think it's immortelle. It's got this kind of dark floral dryness, patchouli. It's really good, and it kind of takes you to, the point is like the god of death, like an Egyptian tomb. And the floral smells are really quite magical in there, but with them is the saffron. And again, it smells like actual saffron. It's just this little bit of sharpness. It's like reddy brown sharpness that runs through it at first, that becomes quite leathery and quite tough. And I suppose if you're thinking of the wrapping of the bandages, the kind of old skin, the old parchment, that kind of thing, it adds that to it. And just a twinkle of something a little sweet. It's not a weird sweet saffron. It's still dark, but it adds that mystique, something ancient and what have you to it, like it would to your rice, like a nice little flavour there. So anyway, that's Anubis from Pap. Next, this one is a bit of a saffron beast actually. It's The Promise from Frederic Malle. Now this one is primarily a kind of rotten, sharp apple, like a brown apple. Don't worry, it doesn't smell off or anything like that. It took me a long time to get used to this. And a rose, kind of a sharper rose that gets bigger. Probably there's geranium making the rose a bit bigger. And then the saffron adds this rich dark brownness, probably going with the apple. And it just this one is more of on the leathery side, and it just kind of expands the fragrance, gives it more levels, more kind of nuance in there. And this might even be what gives it a slight kind of medicinal kind of feel. A little bit of plaster, but not too much, and I think again it adds to the colour of it. Like I say, this is a very reddy brown one. And then the fragrance itself kind of is massive, and the ambroxan kind of pushes it. But they're all really quite heavy, beautiful, rich notes. And like I say, this is one, I didn't get it at first. So why do people love this? What on earth is this? Something about it that's quite intoxicating, quite like the other one, quite the world of the dead, kind of underworldy about it. And it's really quite a fragrance. So that's Promise from Frederic. And finally is a sweeter addition to the trio, the designer. Are they designer? Probably. Are they niche? Who knows? Chiali. And that's Sweet Diamond Pink Pepper, whatever number it is. And this one is a lot like a sweet, more playful version of Noir de Noir. It doesn't have the darkness, it doesn't have the kind of naughty wink or something. It's more of a party version, but it is a very kind of strong, sweet, beautiful dark rose mixing with the sweeter patchouli in this one. and there's a lovely muskiness about it. There's a reason this one's loved. It is really good. And what the saffron in this one does is just gives that little bit of edge. I don't think there's actually listed lemon in this. Lemon, leather. But it gives this kind of leathery texture with a little bit of a kind of very dark orange smell. There's an oud note in it, and again I think it mixes with that just to give it that kind of Middle Eastern opulence, if you like. And it's not too strong. It thankfully doesn't dominate it. This one is primarily all about the rose and the sort of chocolatey patchouli, and the vanilla tames everything, makes it smooth. So the saffron again is more kind of blended in there, but adds to the feel of the fragrance, and that kind of, well, delightfulness about it, and that kind of bit of a nod to the Middle East, you know, the kind of, it's not a rose oud, but that kind of nod that way, that kind of class and beauty about it. So yeah, that's a Kayali Sweet Diamond Pink. So that concludes my saffrony fragrances. Like again, the saffron in all three of them isn't the biggest note, thankfully, because like I say, I struggle with it. Maybe more in the promise, you more get to see its raw kind of power and beauty in that. And again, it's one of them weird perfume notes that, like fig, doesn't actually smell like the real thing. What saffron does to my food is it gives it, sometimes it depends how much you use, doesn't it? And I'm poor, so I don't use much, but it does give it this kind of slight hint of bitterness. But at the same time, I find saffron can add a bit almost sweetness. I suppose it's because it's with something, like if you have it with rice, it's something that has no taste or flavour at all. So it is a favourite spice to cook with. Again, I don't cook with it often. And funny story, this is it making this too long, but I had a jar of saffron. I used to buy it every now and again when I had money, and what I'd do is I'd put them all in. You get them in little plastic, tiny little plastic bags, don't you, in a jar. So I put them all in one jar, and I was kind of using my way through them. You know, when you've got a bit of money, you splash out for future things. Anyway, this jar was, I moved up here. It was stored with all my other spices, and my sister threw it away. I could have cried. I could have wept for months. I will never forgive her for that. How much money she threw away there, I can only guess. But I was absolutely devastated, and I'm still bitter, and I'll always be bitter. You all understand that, don't you? But yeah, anyway, what about you? What's your favourite saffron kind of fragrance? Do you have a particular type of saffron you prefer? Do you cook with saffron? Alright, anyway, thanks folks. Goodbye.